Let's discuss about the ITTOs. First, inputs. The first input is project management plan. Let's look at its components. Requirements management plan. The requirements management plan describes how contractors' requirements will be analyzed, documented, and managed. Risk management plan. The risk management plan describes how risk activities will be created by the seller and how they will be structured and performed in the project. Procurement management plan. The procurement management plan contains the activities to be performed during the control procurement process. The next one is change management plan. The change management plan contains information on how the seller created changes will be processed. The last one is schedule baseline. Schedule slip by sellers per performance will impact the overall project performance. To track it, you need schedule baseline. The next input is project documents. So obviously components of project documents. Assumption log. The documented assumptions that have been made during the procurement process. Lessons learned register. The lessons learned from previous projects can be applied to improve contract performance and procurement process. Milestone list. The list of major milestones shows when the sellers are expected to deliver the result. These results are compared with the actual delivery date. In case of variance, necessary actions are triggered, such as corrective and preventive action. So, naturally, the milestone list becomes an input. Quality reports. Quality reports helps to identify things that are out of compliance. They may be out of process, procedure, or products. Requirements documentation. Requirements documentations may include technical requirements that the seller is required to satisfy, requirements with the contractual and legal implications. The next one is requirements traceability matrix. The requirements traceability matrix links product requirements from their origin to the deliverables that satisfy them. Risk register. Each approved sellers will come with their own unique set of risk depending on the seller's organization. It varies depending on the duration of contract, the external environment, the project delivery method, the type of contracting vehicle chosen, and the final agreed upon price. Lastly, stakeholder register. The stakeholder register contains information about the stakeholders who are involved in the procurement, such as identified stakeholders, including contracted team members, selected sellers, contracting officers, and other stakeholders. The third input is agreement. Agreements will have the understanding and duties of each parties. The relevant agreement is reviewed to verify the terms and conditions are met. The fourth input is procurement documentation. During control procurement, you basically administer the procurement process. Procurement documents contains all the supporting records for the administration. This includes statement of work, payment information, contract work performance information, any plan, drawing, and other communication related documents. The fifth input is approved change request. Just like any other change, all the requested change that are related to procurement should be documented in writing and approved before being implemented through control procurement process. The approved change request can bring in modification to the terms and conditions of the contract, which includes the procurement statement of work (SOW), pricing, description, product or service or result to be provided as a whole. When a project is linked to the program, changes in one component may have impact in other projects of the program. So, the change requests need to be analyzed carefully. The sixth is work performance data. Work performance data contains seller data on project status, such as technical performance, activities that are started, in progress, and completed, and costs that have been incurred or committed. Work performance data can also include information on the seller's invoice that have been paid. The seventh input is enterprise environmental factors. Buyer's organization's code of ethics, contract change control system, financial management and accounts payable system, and market condition describes what product, service, and results are available in the regional and global markets. These are some of the enterprise environmental factors to be considered as inputs. The eighth input is organizational process assets. Procurement policies is one of the key organizational process assets that is used as input. Now, tools and techniques. First, expert judgment. The expert to this process can be from relevant functional areas such as finance, engineering, design, development, supply chain management, etc. Laws, regulations, and compliance requirements, claims administration. Generally, the contract documents covers change management between the buyer and the seller. At times, change requests from the buyer may be constructive or for convenience that may not be fulfilled by the seller, or seller's deliverable have deviation from what is agreed. When they cannot be resolved, they become disputes and finally appeals. Negotiation is the most preferred way to settle the claims. But if the parties themselves do not resolve, it should be handled with the alternative dispute resolution, also called as ADR. Typically, the contract will have a clause that covers the procedure to be followed when there is a dispute. So, it's best that all the claims are documented, processed, monitored, and managed throughout the contract lifecycle, usually in accordance with the terms of contract. Third, data analysis. There are three tools and techniques in data analysis. Let's look at them. First, performance review. Contract-related performance is measured, compared, and analyzed for quality, resource, schedule, and cost performance against the agreement. This can reveal information about work packages that are ahead or behind schedule, over or under budget, and work packages that have resource or quality issues. During the review, the seller and buyer will have discussion on what can be done differently to advance the work. Formal changes to the management plan or the contract may be requested as a result of this meeting. This review also helps to improve the relationship between buyer and seller. Second, earned value analysis. Schedule and cost performance indexes and schedule and cost variance calculated are used to determine the degree of variance from target. The third is trend analysis. Trend analysis can develop a forecast estimated completion EAC for cost performance to see if the performance is improving or deteriorating. And this can be used to develop forecast estimates and estimated completion. Trend analysis determines whether performance is getting better or worse. Fourth, inspection. An inspection is a structured review of the work being performed by the contractor. This may involve a simple review of the deliverables or the actual physical review of the work itself. On a construction or engineering or infrastructure kind of work, inspection involves walkthroughs of the site by both the buyer and the contractor to ensure a mutual understanding of the work in progress or verify compliance with the procurement statement of work. In case of variance or deviation, then it may trigger change request. The last tools and technique is audits. The purpose of audit is to confirm that the seller activities are in compliance with the approved procurement policies and processes. When performing the procurement contract, audit process must be clearly stated. The audit team should consist people from both buyer and seller side. Audit observations should be brought into the attention of both buyers and sellers project managers. It's the project manager's responsibility on both sides to take necessary action in case of any discrepancies. As an outcome of the audit, procurement process may be improved to capture lessons learned. All right, let's discuss about the outputs. Close to procurements. Here, it's contract closure. Once all the deliverables are completed according to the specification, the contract must be formally closed. Generally, procurement management plan contains requirements that ought to be fulfilled and the terms and conditions for formal procurement closure. Before closing the contract, the seller has the obligation to provide all the deliverables on time, meet the technical and quality requirements. The buyer has the obligation of no outstanding claims or invoice, and all final payment should have been made. The project management team should have approved all the deliverables prior to closure. The buyer provides the seller with a formal written notice that the contract has been completed. This is usually done through authorized procurement administrator. Procurements are closed when a contract is completed. There may be some obligations, such as warranties, that will continue after the procurement is closed. All the procurements must be closed out whether they are stopped or terminated or completed. All the procurements must be closed as a part of monitoring and controlling before final project closure. I'm giving a hint here. There may be questions in the sample examination on this topic. To protect the legal interests of both parties, procurement closures requires detailed record keeping and must be done formally. Contract can be terminated before the work is completed. Let's look at some of the scenarios. Seller breaches the contract, which is also called as cause. There may be occasions when the seller breaches out the contract, that is, does not perform according to the contract. Due to this cause, the buyer may terminate the contract. Convenience. Contract can be terminated if the deliverables are no longer wanted for the project. This is called termination for convenience. In fact, contract termination is a drastic step that should be taken only when the existing contract no longer serves the purpose of defining all the work, roles, and responsibilities. In any case, the buyer has to pay to the seller. An extensive negotiation may be required before final settlement. In case of buyer terminates the contract for convenience, then the seller is usually get paid for both the work in progress and the work completed. But in case if the seller goes default, then the seller generally gets paid only for the work completed but not for the work in progress. A seller is rarely allowed to terminate a contract, but it could be appropriate in some projects. Typically, the contract should have provision for termination which covers both costs and convenience. When there are too many changes in procurement, then it may be best to terminate the contract and start fresh by negotiating a new contract. You may have the new contract with the existing seller, or you may find a new seller. Now, let's try to answer the age-old question: difference between procurement closure and project closure. One single project may have multiple requirements depending on the need, right? Each requirements must be closed once the requirements are fulfilled. Agreed? Let's say in our construction project during the foundation phase, to prepare the foundation, you may procure special kind of brick and cement. Once the foundation phase is completed, you have to close the procurement of that particular special brick, but you will continue the procurement contract for cement because you need it for the next phases. Every procurement must be handled independently. You may have other procurements running, you will not close those. Whereas the closure of project or phase only happens at the end of the project or phase. Remember, for the projects that are managed in phases such as design phase, testing phase, and installation phase, the phase closure is done at the end of each phase and the project gets closed at the end. There may be some procurement contracts get closed along with the procurement closure. That may be due to the nature of the item that is procured. For example, in the construction project, the construction employee may be from the third party. You need them until you close the construction completely. Remember, upon completion of each procurement contract, the project manager reviews the procurement process and seller's performance. In case if the project is completed as a whole at later point, then the project manager performs final administrative and financial closure. Every procurement must be closed at the end of the project, whatever it is. Now, the second output, work performance information. Seller's performance, such as deliverables received, technical performance achieved, cost incurred, and acceptable deliverables against SOW are compared against the plan. The third output is procurement documentation updates. Record management can be simple or complex, depends on the project and the type of industry. By the way, record management system is not only about recording information but also indexing, archiving, and retrieval. As output of control requirement, the documents that supports to administer the procurement will be updated, such as scheduling, change requests, and approved change requests. You update all the seller related information such as work performance information, seller performance report, financial documents such as invoicing and payment records, contract-related inspections. You may even update the technical documentation developed by seller for the benefit of the project. The record management system are helpful to keep the procurement documentation complete, organized, and accessible. In future, in case if any question arises related to procurement related actions, the records will support with information. They will be useful even during claims or legal actions. Records may also be necessary to satisfy insurance requirements. In the record management system, every communication, such as email, payment, verbal, and written communication, number of people worked on each day are recorded. The fourth output is change request. As a part of control procurement process, the changes may be triggered to project management plan and its subsidiary plan and other components such as cost baseline, schedule baseline, and procurement management plan. All changes must be processed through, yes, you know it, through change control process. Let's update the project management plan. First, risk management plan. Each agreement and sellers have their own set of risks. They need to be updated in risk management plan. This includes any unexpected risks that occurred. Procurement management plan. Updates may be required depending on the result of performance of the seller during execution of the work. Schedule baseline. If there is a significant schedule change created by the seller that impact overall project schedule performance, then the baseline schedule may need to be updated and approved to reflect the current expectations. The buyer should be aware of any cascading impacts of schedule delay created by a seller that impacts other sellers as well. Cost baseline. Contractors and material price may fluctuate during the delivery of a project. These changes can occur because of fluctuating material and labor price due to external economic environment. This to be incorporated into cost baseline. Now, let's update the project documents. Lessons learned register. The lessons learned registers can be updated with techniques that were effective in maintaining the scope, schedule, and cost of procured items. Wherever variance occurred, the register should show the corrective action and were used to respond to variance and how effective those actions were. If there is any claim, information should be documented to avoid recurrence. Additional information on how to improve the procurement process can also be recorded. Resource requirements. As the work gets carried out by the contractors, there may be changes to the resource requirements resulting from work being done that is not in accordance with the planned work schedule. Requirements traceability matrix. The requirements traceability matrix is updated with the information on requirements that have been satisfied. Risk register. Each approved seller will have their own list of risks. It might happen that the risks that are identified earlier are no longer applicable and new risk may be identified. Stakeholder register. As the work progresses through the execution phase, the contractors and suppliers may change. These changes should be reflected in the stakeholder register. The last output is organizational process asserts updates. The procurement is closed only when the seller formally signs off for the delivery. Payment schedules and requests. Don't forget, you have to make all the payments to the vendor according to the procurement contract terms and conditions. In case of project closure, you can indicate whether the seller will be able to perform the work on future projects. Give rating about seller's performance so that it will be easy to interpret in the future. When I say future, both projects and project phases. Pre-qualified sellers list updates. Pre-qualified seller lists are the list of potential sellers who are previously qualified or approved. These lists will be updated according to the procurement control process outcomes because sellers could be disqualified and removed from the list based on poor performance. Lessons learned repository. Lessons learned should be archived in the lessons learned repository to improve procurements on future projects. This includes what went right, what went wrong, what could have been done better. At the end of the contract, The actual results of the procurement are compared with the project results in the original procurement management plan. These lessons learned state whether the project objectives were achieved or not. If they were not achieved, then they provide the reason for not achieving. Procurement file. Here, we are talking about the contract documentation, including the closed contract that to be included in the final project file. Product validation. This involves checking to see if all the works were completed correctly and satisfactorily. Procurement negotiation. The final settlements of all claims, invoices, and other issues may be handled through negotiation or through the dispute resolution process. All right, that was a long list. Here we wrap up the ITTO. Let's move to the next knowledge area, stakeholder management.